We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse's Phil Brasher, as well as this week by Georgia Republican Austin Scott. And Congressman Scott, we appreciate you joining us.
Glad to be here.
So for starters, obviously the big news in Washington this week, farm policy, any policy format really, is the $1.9 trillion recovery plan that we saw passed out of the House this week after it was passed previously and some changes in the Senate. Obviously, anytime you put $1 trillion on a price tag, it's going to be a massive bill. But we've seen, some coronavirus relief passed before. In your mind, obviously a lot of different provisions in this bill. Sure. Do you think this is the conclusion of the coronavirus relief legislation that we're going to see, Capitol Hill produce?
No, it's not. And look, it's 1.9 trillion because 2 trillion would sound like too much. But the fact of the matter is only about 10% of this, the funds from this go towards vaccinations and healthcare. And there are tremendous amount of payouts to people in the bill that I very much disagree with. And candidly, I think that if you look at the economy, I think it's, we've got a lot of risk right now, and I'm not sure that that by spending the 1.9 trillion right now that you're operating in the best interest of the citizens of the country. One of the provisions of the bill that if you're an ag person you're paying attention to is the Section 1005, which obviously paid off the debts of some of America's farmers, but not all of America's farmers. And so if you look at the news, what the news is reporting it as is that African American and Black farmers are going to have their USDA notes, whether they be direct lending or guaranteed notes, forgiven. The fact of the matter is it's much broader than that. It is Hispanic and Latino and farmers of Spanish origin. It is American Indian or Alaskan Natives. It is African American. It is Asian, it is Native Hawaiians and other Pacific Islanders. So there are about 250,000 farmers who qualify by race or ethnicity for that debt forgiveness program. Now, how many of them have loans that are, again, direct lending through the USDA or guaranteed by the USDA? We don't know yet. We've asked for that information, but you do not have to be a United States citizen in the legislation to get the debt forgiveness. And so we've got some letters that our colleagues are signing with us going to the USDA to encourage that it be limited to U.S. citizens and that they only pay the money out to people who have gone to court and proven discrimination, and that they do not discriminate against women in the payout as they did in the legislation. But I'm opposed to Section 1005, period. But if they're going to do it, they've sure made it extremely broad, and by blocking out women, that they effectively blocked out white and Caucasian families from any of the debt relief.
Well, Congressman, one of the arguments for this provision, which would affect, I guess they're estimating about 15,000 farmers and get about $222,000 a piece, something like that, I believe is the CBO estimate.
That's the CBO estimate.
Right. One of the main arguments is that, look, the vast majority of the money that goes out in commodity programs and other farm bill programs goes to white farmers and white landowners, obviously, because that's who owns the land, that is who farms.
Sure.
Just making up some of that.
Well, what I would tell you is that we do not discriminate based on race or ethnicity with regard to eligibility for any of those programs. And, we shouldn't, and we shouldn't discriminate in the loan programs either. A socially disadvantaged farmer today can qualify by race, ethnicity, or by gender. And they use a 1990 definition to eliminate the gender issue from the socially disadvantaged farm loans. And that, by definition, it's uncomfortable to talk about it because of the race scenario in the legislation, but the fact of the matter is they did it if you're an African American woman, you qualify as African American and in the woman category. If you're an Asian woman, you qualify as an Asian and as a woman. But if you're a Caucasian or a white woman, then you're blocked out from the ability to participate in Section 1005. And so the CBO estimate assumes 15,000 farmers will be eligible for the payment. But if you just the GAO report shows that 112,000 qualify by Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. So the American Indian and Alaska Natives is 58,000. The Black or African American is 45,000, and the Asian is 22,000. So you have almost 250,000 people that qualify, farmers that qualify by race or ethnicity for the loan forgiveness. We have challenged CBO on their numbers. They're saying they think that it will be close to 15,000 loans that are forgiven with a price tag of $5 billion. But candidly, I would think that if of the 250,000 farmers who are eligible, the way they wrote Section 1005, that if only 10% of them have a USDA loan or a USDA guaranteed loan, that's 25,000, not 15,000.
The other argument that's made by the chairman of House Ag Committee, you're very familiar with, David Scott,
a friend of mine,
first Black chairman of the committee. It's obviously a very personal issue for him. He says he wants to see more Black farmers, more with farming more land, presumably. Is it a worthy goal to get more diversity in agriculture, get more people of color farming? And if so, how would you do that? What's the best way of doing it?
So I do think I think it is a worthy goal. And if you look statistically, it's actually happening. We have more minority farmers today than we had 5 years ago. And so it is happening. Now, one of the challenges is if you didn't inherit the land from a family member, then you're renting the land. And so you're having to pay more of your revenue out to somebody else than if you own the land. So a couple of things that could be done to help specifically minority farmers. You've got a huge issue with what is called the heirs issue, where you have a tremendous amount of our minority farmers who passed away without a will. And you end up with significant problems with titles and questions about, who does and doesn't have the land. And in the end, that creates serious problems for those families. And so I do think that through putting the right people in place at the USDA, that we could help with the heirs related issue that, again, is a result of so many people in prior years passing away without wills. And so that's something that can be done. We can use Fort Valley State University and other historically Black colleges and universities and scholarship programs and other things through their foundations. Corporate America is coming out pointing the finger at us. I would challenge corporate America, before you point the finger at us, why don't you talk to somebody like a Fort Valley State University about their foundation, and how if you contributed to their foundation and the foundation purchased land, that perhaps that could be used to help young minority farmers get a start and get to moving ahead and pushing ahead as a young and beginning farmer. And so we can do things for young and beginning farmers without discriminating based on race. We do that now. And there are other things that we can do through historically Black colleges and universities like Fort Valley State University that certainly through their foundation and helping them with scholarships we can do. And we could help with the minority community. I think is disproportionately affected by the heirs related issue, which is what happens when someone who dies without a will, and then that land, you're never really able to get a clear title on it. If you don't have a clear title on it, you can't borrow the money against the land to get your operating loan and other things. So I'm more than willing to work with David Scott and my other colleagues on things that help with minority farming. But there's a difference in helping a minority farmer and passing a piece of legislation that specifically excludes people that are white and Caucasian farmers from participating in a code section of the law.
I want to switch to the climate policy for a minute. Senate Agriculture Committee had its first hearing, probably first of several, as they developing probably a pretty broad policy, very significant issue for agriculture. As you know, the farm groups have gotten together. This Food and Ag Climate Alliance have put out about 40 recommendations. Where do you see the House Ag Committee and particularly Republicans on the committee? Are you going to be able to support bills that accelerate the development or facilitate the development of carbon markets?
Well, first of all, I think that the Republicans will take the House back next year. I think the Democrats have gone way, way beyond what the public expected them to do with regard to some things, and there's typically a backlash when a group does that. We saw that in our party over the last several years, and you saw it in the Democratic Party over the last several years. So from our standpoint, with regard to adopting something that is as far to the left as Joe Biden's people would accept, I don't see Republicans on the committee being willing to go to the lengths that the Democratic Party is going to demand that we go to with regard to whether it be carbon capture, carbon banks, or any of the other types of things that they're going to press for. So we're going to listen to the discussion. We recognize as a whole that we can and we should do a better job of taking care of the environment. But candidly, we're competing in a global environment, and if the farmers in Mexico aren't having to comply with the same types of rules and regulations that we are on things like tractor emissions and herbicides and pesticides, then I don't see how the United States farmer can compete in a global market if you continue to put more rules and regulations and therefore cost burden on the inputs of a U.S. farmer when other people in the world aren't complying with those cost inputs. So I do not think that we will get to an agreement with the Democratic Party on the issue of carbon banks this year. I am very concerned that if you do not do something significant with the Commodity Credit Corporation and funding for the United States Department of Agriculture, then that money in the end comes out of the pockets of the U.S. ag producers, and that's not acceptable to me.
So you don't believe them when they say that they can, when the secretary says, Secretary Vilsack says they won't touch commodity program. They have enough money in the CCC potentially to.
So the total amount of funding for Commodity Credit Corporation today is the same as it was when I was in high school, and I'm significantly closer to Social Security than I am to my high school graduation years. And so, you know, I've been one who's advocated to raise the $30 billion number to $60 billion, which is about where it would have been with inflation. But, you know, I mean, if you look at what we are seeing come out of the Biden-Vilsack administration, and you can go back, it was the Obama-Biden-Vilsack administration just 4 years ago, right? And so if you look at what is coming out of the administration, it is further to the left under Biden-Vilsack than it was Obama-Biden-Vilsack. And that's very concerning to me and should be to most of America's producers. But taking money that we use for crop insurance and other things to help mitigate the risk of our producers in production agriculture, taking money from that and putting it into carbon-related programs is something that I do not think that Republicans on the House Agriculture Committee will support.
Congressman, I want to wrap up our conversation following up on a thought that you offered to us on this same program in June of last year. And at that point, you were suggesting that, given what we've seen in terms of the testing of the farm safety net through the trade wars, through the coronavirus pandemic, what have you, that it was maybe time to consider a potential 2021 rewrite of the Farm Bill. Wondering, obviously we're in a different world now
Sure.
than we were then. We know election outcomes. We have a better idea of the market impact of the pandemic. Is a 2021 Farm Bill rewrite something that you still think should happen?
Well, when I was talking about rewriting the Farm Bill, I was talking about rewriting it with a president that actually supported production agriculture and with a Senate that was controlled by Republicans. And so if we rewrote the Farm Bill with one party control of Washington, D.C., and that being the Democratic Party control, then what I think you would see is a farm bill used to support a lot of things that have no business in the Farm Bill and would be outside of agriculture. And so I'm very concerned right now. There was money that was set aside through CFAP that was to help our producers with regard to the loss in commodity prices and other things. The Biden administration put that money on hold and was discussing using that money for climate and other liberal agenda related purposes, and instead of to support production agriculture. And so I'm extremely concerned that without a balanced approach to that bill, that the American farmer would end up with less, not more. And look what they did in the coronavirus package, right? I mean, if you belong to a certain race or a certain ethnicity, they're going to eliminate your debts. Not just eliminate your debt, but they're going to give you 20% to boot, because they don't want you to personally have to pay the taxes on it. But if you belong to another race or ethnicity, they're not. And so my concern is that if they're going to continue to push down that biased type of policy, then I don't see any way that we can work with them on a whole lot. And there's no way. If they had said, of the four groups, we're going to block out one of the other groups, I would have been opposed to that too. Right? I mean, if they had said, well, we're going to pay it off for women, and we're going to pay it off for Hispanics, and we're going to pay it off for African Americans, but we're not going to pay it off for Asians, well, I would have said that's not right. They all qualify as socially disadvantaged farmers. Now, again, I'm opposed to paying off the debts for anybody. But certainly, unless someone can prove discrimination, they should not be paid off.
So obviously a lot of different things that we could sit here and discuss in the broad scheme of farm policy, but I think we're going to let you go for now, and look forward to a chat further down the road on this and many other subjects. So for Phil Brasher and Congressman Austin Scott, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.